With the new quarter just days away, it's time for us to ask ourselves the critical but often difficult questions that set the stage for the hard work ahead. What we're going to do is figure out not only where you are, but where you'd like to be. And we're going to perform some mental stretching to make sure that you're setting goals exciting and big enough that you take advantage of some opportunities that you might otherwise not consider. We're going to add a zero and raise the anchor so that you're not holding yourself back from what could be an amazing quarter. My name's Leo Manzione. I'm a business coach. Let's dive in. So let's dive into those stretches. I'm going to ask you to write down some numbers that you can then change based on certain math that I'll hand you. I'll tell you this, the more that you actually go through this exercise and explicitly write or type it out and go through the math, the stronger the impact. So feel free to listen to it and then go through it again and go through those numbers. But I need to make clear for best results, go through and crunch them. First, how much are you earning right now? Now, this may be a tough number to stomach because a lot of people have seen a dip, but in order to go through the exercise, we need to acknowledge it for what it is. You get to pick your period. This could be every week, every month, every quarter, every year, maybe multiple years, but take that number and figure out what it is so that we can adjust it, because we need to figure out how much would you like to be earning. A big way to start with a number of what you like to be earning is first, are you sufficient? Do you have enough to really make ends meet? Are you paying your bills? If not, it's probably how much you should be earning at the very minimum. If you are, then start thinking about your ideal lifestyle, what you'd like to do with that money, with your time, and start working backwards of seeing how much do I need in order to afford those things. Now, here's a big, very important point. If the number that you'd like to be earning, and you're going to set other goals that you'd like to be hitting, if they don't feel realistic, that's a problem. Because they don't feel realistic. It's as if you have a support team that anytime you give them a goal or a task, they scoff and say, whatever, it's not actually possible. Not useful to you. So make sure that this goal really does resonate as realistic and possible, because if it doesn't, you're not really going to hit it. If you need help figuring this out, this is a great conversation that I or somebody that's in my role as a coach is more than happy to have with you. Next up, how much are you earning per hour? Now, as you do this calculation, you're probably going to need to do the math of how much you're actually working every week, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I want you to include the time that you spend thinking about the business, maybe hand-wringing, worrying. People always feel personally attacked when I say this, but believe me, you're not alone. The time that you're spending thinking about the business that isn't actually productively moving your business forward. Add that in. Now, some of you, maybe attorneys, other service professionals, can very clearly say what your hourly rate is. This is not that. This is an effective rate. So sure, you may be earning a couple $100s an hour for the time that you're spending working on cases, but the rest of that time factors in and decreases it because you're probably not getting paid a couple $100 an hour in order to do administrative tasks. In fact, you could pay someone else a lot less in order to get that done, get it off your plate so you could spend more time per hour focusing on bringing revenue in. So I need you to figure out how much you'd like to be earning every hour. Now, this is a difficult question because the anchoring is very solidly in quote unquote, what's fair. But I'm going to go ahead and break that for you. As a business owner, and some of you may not consider yourselves business owners, more of somebody that has a job, but you're an entrepreneur, somebody within a business that often has your own little realm, your own world where you can focus on increasing your numbers. I need you to recognize that this can and should be quite high. In fact, it could be to the tune of thousands of dollars. That seems absurd, but imagine if you build a system that brings in a whole lot of revenue long-term. That's the kind of amount that you should be bringing in every hour and holding yourself accountable to, because the opportunity cost of you doing an administrative task when you could have built something that contributes tremendously to your company, that's something that we need to acknowledge and take very seriously. So remember earlier I asked you to figure out how much time you're working every week, including that time that you spend worrying. Let's take that and write it down, because I need you to figure out how much you'd like to be working every week. Now, again, we have that fair barrier of figuring out, okay, is it acceptable for me to be working a fraction of what I would be otherwise or what other people on my team are working? And I'm going to tell you right here, right now, yes. As long as you're bringing in the right amount of value. And again, this is your role as a business owner instead of just an employee, because naturally management will tell us, hey, if you're getting this amount done in half the time, how about you work twice as much as you were, effectively the same as everybody else, and get twice as much done? Makes sense, right? As a business owner, you get to change those ratios yourself. So you get to work as little or as much as you want, as long as you get the key things done. So it's time, now that you've written those questions down, to raise that anchor. So just like a ship, we raise our anchor so that we can go where we want to go, so we're no longer tethered and held down. And I'll explain the concept of an anchor very clearly, quickly, and concisely here. In a negotiation, you tend not to stray far from it. It's that price that's set. Some people say 10%, some people say more, but make sure that you're not anchoring yourself by saying, oh, I'm only really worth this much by the hour. I only really should be earning this much. This is where you purposely stretch it beyond that breaking point. And it's probably not a great analogy to call it mental stretching, because you shouldn't stretch a muscle to the point where it breaks. But this, mentally, you can break it and actually recreate the muscle much stronger and more effectively and where it should be instead of something with limited range of motion. So I'm going to ask you to multiply and sometimes divide these numbers. We're going to go through these quickly, so don't worry about pausing the recording. Totally fine. We'll be here when you unpause. Next, multiply your earnings currently. How does that feel? Multiply how much you'd like to be earning. Easy way to do this, by the way, is just add a 0. Next, that's why it's called that. Multiply how much you're earning by the hour. How much you'd like to be earning by the hour. And here's the point. For a lot of people, and I've gone through this exercise so many times with people, they do this and they say, wow, that just isn't possible. I couldn't, in any situation, charge that much per hour. But I need, again, for you to think of it like a business owner and think of a system, something you can put in place. There's no doubt that if you could set up a pipeline of your ideal customers to your business, that's worth a lot more than you would charge a client. Because effectively you are charging the business that much. And in turn, you can create that much value and then charge that much. So then the question becomes capacity. Is there enough time? And although it may seem like I'm going to ask you to multiply how much you're working every week by 10, that's simply not possible. So what I want you to do is instead divide it by 10. Wow, that seems absurd. I mean, maybe working an 80-hour week and 8-hour work just seems impossible, but that's the point. Is this is stretching. This is to push you beyond that point that you're usually comfortable with, to add flexibility and strength so that you can see, you know what? Maybe there are things I could put in place. There are things called the heart attack protocol, which we've talked about in other videos, which we'll link in the description, that you should consider as you create the structure and the environment where you could really be this successful. So again, it's unreasonable to work 10 times as much. Even if your goal was aggressive of saying, I just want to work 20 hours a week, you can't work 200. So remember to divide that by 10 and then see what you could do to get a lot more done in less time. My name's Leo. I'm a business coach. This stretching exercise is a really important part of the work that I do. If you want to have a conversation about that, even if we don't end up working together, get a complimentary session. We'll sit down, we'll have a conversation and make sure that you've got what you need to succeed. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.